I'm Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each set a bit of grade from A+ to F. Now, we are in the between space of Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber, but we got a lot of setting up to do. In fact, SmackDown this week revolves entirely, pretty much, around setting up the Elimination Chamber match. So, without any further ado, let's crack on with it. Hit the intro! So Roman and co come down to start off the show, as always these days, and Adam Pearce is waiting in the ring for them. He's got a little clipboard with him. Roman proceeds to run Pearce down and he brings up Edge. He says that Edge went running scared because he's so scared of Roman and what Roman's going to do to him. And Roman's like, he's right to be scared because I beat him so hard that they put him on a Legends contract. Pearce then reveals to Roman that in his hands he holds the contract for Roman's Elimination Chamber match, and Roman's Elimination Chamber match is the Elimination Chamber match. And Paul Heyman immediately jumps in and he's like, whoa, 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 Roman is not defending the title in the chamber. Heyman says, look, Roman is not going to be in the match defending his title, but, you know, he still has to be on the show. You know, WWE did make him promise that he would make, you know, certain commitments, and Elimination Chamber is one of them. So how about after the Elimination Chamber match, the second that somebody's won, they, that lucky winner, can immediately have a match against Roman Reigns. Heyman then backs up his stance with, what the hell are you going to do about it? Fire Roman? Pearce reluctantly agrees, but he says, you know, we're going to have some qualifiers, but there are two people that I feel have done so much recently that they shouldn't really have to qualify, and one of these people is Jey Uso. And then Roman just turns to Jey. Jey looks awkward, conflicted, doesn't know what to do, slightly buzzing, slightly terrified, slightly doesn't know what the hell's going on. And Pearce is edging his way out of the ring to the floor, and he goes, and the other one is Kevin Owens. And Roman just sort of bursts out of the ring, straight down to Pearce, and he's getting in his face as Heyman's just trying to pull him away. This was beautiful. It was a strong promo. It has huge implications, and I'm going to give it an A-. And recently, you lot, I've been seeing underneath people slagging off the fact that I'll rate promos highly and I'll rate matches in a different manner. Well, promos are an integral part of wrestling, and if a promo's good, a promo can be better than a match. A match can be better than a promo. You know, a backstage interview segment can be better than both. You never know what's coming each week, but in my opinion, this, A-. We then go to a backstage segment and Pearce runs into Sonya, and Sonya's like, look, already way ahead of you, already sorted out qualifying matches, starting with the next match, the first match of the night, Rey and Dominik Mysterio versus Corbin and Sami Zayn. So when Sami makes his entrance, he's of course got his camera crew and a microphone, and he says that it's an absolute injustice that WWE feels that Sami and Corbin should even have to qualify. Rey and Dominik jump Sami, Corbin jumps Rey and Dominik. Rey goes for an early 619, but Sami grabs the feet and trips him. So Rey hits the deck, Dominik comes barreling out to the outside with a massive dive, and it looked like when he wiped Sami out, he might have connected a little bit too hard with the announce table there. Hopefully he's okay. He does continue on in the match, so fingers crossed it just was like a bad angle. And then when we come back from the break, Corbin is absolutely dominating Rey until Sami and Dominik get in and just put on an absolute display of liquid wrestling. Dom even takes care of Corbin until Sami gets in and takes charge again. There's then an end of days attempt and things sort of fall apart a little bit here. Corbin needs a double 619, and then with Rey taken care of on the outside, unfortunately, Sami hits the haluva kick and picks up the 3. I'm going to give this one a B+. It was a lovely little match this, but my main issue with it, I guess, was that it was so little. Dominik's come on leaps and bounds, and there were some great moments of excitement. I just wish you could have seen it just a tiny little bit longer. Was it retreading some old ground? Sure, but it's a qualifier. I don't think, you know, we're supposed to think about it much beyond the fact that whoever wins progresses to the chamber. We then go back to Pearce and Sonya backstage, who are stood by a monitor, and up pops the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, and they want in on the chamber. And Sonya's like, well, we're not just going to let you in. If you beat Bryan and Cesaro in a match tonight, then fine, you can have your places in the Elimination Chamber. We then go to Reginald backstage, who has a tray with a single flute of champagne on it, and he approaches Sasha Banks. And Sasha kind of brushes him off a little bit, but then she's like, is it true what you what you said about thinking that I could definitely beat Belair? And he's like, absolument, because he's smooth AF and he's French speaking is what I meant to say. I just ended up saying French, and he's not French. She sort of, keeps him around a little bit just for a couple of seconds, and then she's like, well, send my regards to Carmella, and he goes on his way. Oh, I should probably add that Sasha takes the champagne from the tray, so maybe she's using Reggie against her opponents here. Or maybe we're going to have a crazy romance angle involving Sasha Banks and Reginald the Sommelier. Next up, we have Big E coming down to the ring, and he cuts a great promo backing up the fact that he wants to be a fighting champion. Then out comes Apollo Crews. And Apollo Crews, he's like, I deserve this. I accept the challenge. Because, it's quite clear Big E's about to do an open challenge thing. And he's just putting himself in there. He's like, I want this match. And Big E's like, no, anybody but you. Crews takes issue with this, and he's like, come on, man, you know how hard I've worked to get to a level like this. I deserve this shot. And Big E kind of shoots him down again, and then Shinsuke Nakamura's music hits. And next up we go to Big E versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Oh, and it's for the IC title, of course. Bloody hell, Sam. When we come back, Crews is still at ringside, just kind of taking in the action, with Nakamura taking it to Big E until Big E turns the tide, nails him, and then throws him onto the apron for an apron splash. Crews, however, gets up on the apron in order to distract Big E, and this allows Nakamura to line up for the Kinshasa, not once, but twice. He's cut off both times, however, with like this massive Uranagi coming out of the corner to cut him off just before Crews then immediately jumps into the ring, drop kicks Big E, and the match is thrown out as a DQ. Now, I'm going to give this one a C+. It was a real shame, wasn't it? Like, it was a real shame that we didn't get longer with these guys, but I don't think this is the last time we're ever going to see this match. Come on, like, surely we're going to see a full version of it. But I don't know, I think there is a really interesting story to be told here. The match was obviously cut short. Nakamura's not going to be happy about it. Nakamura was on good form, Big E was on good form, and Crews has finally cemented himself as a dastardly heel. It remains to be seen as to whether, he's going to be doing more stuff with Roman, because Roman was the one who kind of initially took him under his wing just a little bit for 1 week, maybe a month or so ago. He just kind of given him some tips about, doing what's best for yourself. But we'll see. But as I said, I think there's something interesting going on around the IC title. So next up, we go to the ring for the return of Seth Rollins, and we've got loads of members of the locker room surrounding the ring, and down he comes in a leather suit. Just a leather suit. But, if there's one guy who could pull it off, it's him. But the only person, interestingly, as he's making his way down the ramp, the only person that I could see who was, applauding him and being nice was Bayley. She was just like, as he approached and went into the ring. Rollins says it feels good to be back, and he's a changed man now because something happened to him while he's been away. He's now the father of a perfect baby girl. He looks around the ring and he sees some of the most talented performers in the entire wrestling industry, and he's thinking about where his place in this might be, if he even has a place at all. But then he worked it out. His place, as you can imagine, his place is at the very tippy top. He announces himself as the great leader that SmackDown needs in order to take itself into the future. And at the revelation of this, he's still an absolute dick. Half of the locker room start peeling out, the other half start going. And then when the lights come back up after Rollins has done his bitch spiel, only Cesaro is left. And Cesaro's kind of stood there. I guess he might have hung around just out of, being polite. Just wait until somebody's finished speaking before you leave. Cesaro's just kind of looking at Rollins. Rollins is like, I knew you'd get it. I knew you'd be the one that would stay. I knew that you'd understand. And Cesaro just kind of shrugs and he's like, man, this is just awkward. And he just leaves. Rollins can't comprehend this though. And as Cesaro's about halfway up the ramp, he jumps out of the ring, targets his knee, takes him down, beats the crap out of him. And it takes referees and Daniel Bryan to come out and send Rollins running away. This gets a B-. I love that we saw an entire locker room just applauding his niceness, going, yeah, we are some of the best wrestlers in the world. And he's like, and I'm the best of them all. And just peel out. It was just great. And a lot of people saying, oh, why are we still doing the Messiah thing? I don't think it's still fairly fresh, guys. I know that we've had like one big long drawn out thing, but it's a new phase for the character, and you can't just sort of have one experiment with it and you know, leave. It hasn't been terrible, has it? It's given us some really solid work. So fingers crossed, we're going to move forward into something just really, really epic that pushes Rollins a bit further up toward the title picture without getting too involved with the Reigns situation, with us currently having a heel champ, of course. Next up, we've got Bayley versus Liv Morgan, and Liv is just straight on Bayley from the second the bell rings. So Bayley's fighting on the back foot, trying to match Liv's pace, but ultimately Liv sends her running to the outside just to catch her breath. Liv then follows her to the outside, goes running. She's going to sort of step up on the ring steps and hit a crossbody. Bayley sidesteps, and Liv just collides with the barrier. Bayley then takes charge for a little bit, but back in the ring, Liv is just getting back to her feet and again taking control. Bayley then decides to pull out some dirty tricks, and she starts working over Liv's bad shoulder. Liv is in absolute agony, but again manages to fight her way up and out of it. Liv even almost has the pin here until Billie Kay comes out with her CVs, and she causes a distraction, and the referee, while his back is turned, she didn't mean to cause the distraction, I should probably add. I don't think she intended to cause the distraction, but while the referee's back's turned, Bayley rakes the eyes, hits the rose plant, and puts Liv away for the 3. And as Bayley's walking out, she sort of looks to Billie Kay, and she kind of smiles and laughs because Billie obviously handed Bayley the victory there. And Billie, though, is kind of like, oh, what have I done, what have I done, what have I done? And she's looking mainly at the Riot Squad like she's panicking. Now, I'm going to give this one a B-. I absolutely loved seeing Liv Morgan just let to go on a tear, like just absolutely matching pace with Bayley here, taking Bayley to a limit at certain points of the match. I don't know where we're going to end up here with Billie, but I'm still trying to think positively. I'm still hopeful that it's going to go somewhere, but pretty soon we've got to do something with it. Either way, the next stop for her is probably going to be getting the crap beaten out of her by the squad, because she's now caused them to lose quite a lot, and I feel like they're starting to get tired of her antics. They've been nice to her, they've asked her politely to, not come out, they've asked her quite meanly to not come out, and yet she's still coming out. We then go real quick to Cesaro and Bryan backstage, and Kayla asks Cesaro about the attack that Seth Rollins just committed on him, and Cesaro's like, it hurts, it sucks and everything, but I'm still going to be competing in the match later, don't worry about that. We then go to the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy, and oh my balls, oh my absolute balls, just Gable and Dawkins putting on an absolute clinic here in the opening phases of this one. Ford gets in, shows off a little bit of his athleticism, and Gable sort of grounds him again with his mat game and really starts to take it to him. Profits get in, double team a bit, but ultimately you know where this match is heading. Otis finally gets in, sends Ford to the floor, hits Dawkins with a caterpillar, tags in Gable for that double team German suplex, discus lariat thing they do, but unfortunately when Otis goes to bounce off the rope before returning to hit Dawkins in the face, Ford low bridges him and Otis goes flying to the floor. Profits then rapidly hit their finish and pick up the win, and I'm going to give this one a B-, and I'm only giving it a minus, I'm only giving it a B- because I wanted to swim in this match. The opening segment, oh my bloody God. So we had that. We had Ford capitalizing even from a compromised position on the floor. You could just tell that both teams really wanted it. And, it's just a key thing when it comes to decent wrestling matches is that believability. If it allows you to suspend your disbelief, and both these teams just really going at it. And that's why I sort of like matches that throw in a little bit more of the amateur wrestling flavor, because it feels a little bit more like a contest. But when you get all these elements right, it really allows you to suspend your disbelief, as I said. So do it again, but I'd say give them a half hour or something, because I could see them doing well with that. I don't know about you guys, but I could. So we go to the ring for a Sasha Banks promo, and she is hyping Bianca Belair's decision that she's got to make for WrestleMania that still hasn't been cemented. Belair comes out almost immediately after Sasha brings her up, and she says, Sasha, I like you, but you're not the boss of me. She mentions that her decision is still unmade, and out comes Shayna Baszler and Nia, my whole Jax. The tag champs take issue with the fact that they were overlooked when they re-won the belts. They kind of got a bit of a chip on their shoulder about it. Sasha calls for some footage to be shown, and initially we see Shayna losing on Raw, and then she's like, no, that's not the footage. You know the footage I want to show. Come on, everybody, we all know. Nia's going, no, don't you dare, don't you dare. And of course, they show it. They show Nia Jax screaming, my hole. Hey, it's everybody's favorite new wrestling meme, but there's no time for jokes as the tag champs then just take it to Sasha and Belair. However, it doesn't go too well for them, with Nia being planted once again, arse first, right on the apron, screaming, shouting, and struggling not to say, my hole. There's nothing like running a joke into the ground, is there, eh? But, you know, we may as well capitalize on it while it's hot. I'm going to give this one a C-, simply because nothing really happened. Nothing. I mean, we could be setting up for a tag match here with Shayna and Nia taking on Sasha and Belair, but is there time to slot that in? We've got building to do. We've got a lot of building to do for WrestleMania. Or maybe they can incorporate it into the build. I don't know. We're just going to play it by ear. We'll play it by ear.
My hole.
And finally, we go to tonight's main event, and it's another chamber qualifier, and it's the Dirty Dogs against Bryan and Cesaro. We get a hot start here with Bryan and Ziggler before Cesaro jumps in to take on a fresh Roode. Bryan and Roode then go for it, with Roode being sent to the floor, and then out comes Bryan for a dive. However, Roode moves out the way, Bryan connects with Cesaro, Cesaro is down again. As the heels stand tall before we go to a break, Corbin and Zayn then emerge to just scope out the talent they may be facing at the chamber. When we come back from the break, Bryan is isolated by the Dogs, and Ziggler is even able to get a cheap shot in while the referee's back's turned. It's also revealed that Roman is watching backstage with Heyman as Ziggler almost gets a 3. Bryan hits a massive drop kick and levels the field, but Roode is able to get in and stop a hot tag to Cesaro. But you can't, of course, keep him away forever, and when Cesaro finally gets in, cleans house, takes it to Roode, and almost picks up the win. He goes for the swing only for Roode to attack his bad leg, but then he goes from torture rack to spinebuster to swing to sharpshooter and picks up the win. Get in there, Cesaro, lad. So Cesaro and Bryan have qualified for the chamber, but then Jey Uso appears in the ring with a chair and lays them out. And then obviously blood in the water. Corbin and Sami, quick chance to, attack some fellow competitors. They jump into the ring as well, and it all descends into chaos. But then Kevin Owens emerges to even the playing field, coming out, hitting a stunner party, stunners on absolutely everybody, the WCPW classic. And after clearing the ring, he grabs Jey's chair, plonks it down, sits in it, looks at Roman right down the camera and tells him, I'm not going anywhere. And that is the end of the show. And I'm going to give this a B+. I absolutely loved it. The back and forth and the pace throughout was great, but I just feel like the end might have let it down a little bit. We're still 2 weeks out from Elimination Chamber, I think, aren't we? Wait, it's not this weekend, that's as much as I know, and we got that really sort of traditional staple, this is what it's going to be like at the Elimination Chamber. Oh, it's madness! So I don't know, why we've pulled that forward a week, but fair enough. But I would love to see these guys get more time. I think I could watch them wrestle for hours, to be honest. I could just sit and watch them wrestle for hours. That's been probably my only complaint this week on SmackDown, is I just want the matches to be longer. That is not me calling for 3 hours. Do not give us 3 hours, for the love of God. But then when you look at everybody who's in the ring, what more could you expect from such tenured talent, really? I mean, just look at them. But in terms of an overall grade for SmackDown this week, I'm gonna give it a B+. It was a lovely little episode, and while it might not have been as strong as some of the other offerings we've had recently, it was a hell of a strong week in terms of what we've had the last couple. We had a standout performance from Liv, we had a great main event, we had all that's set up for the chamber, we've got just further stuff going on backstage. Like, every little bit now just seems to have a story. It's nice. It's so, like, even Reginald's involved in stuff backstage, pops up for 30 seconds per episode, and the story's just kept going. It's just kept going. I love it. And of course, how could we forget the return of Seth Rollins as the untapped nutter who thinks he's still the leader of the locker room. I'm sure Roman's going to have something to say about that sometime sooner or later, so... oh, that's going to be a hell of a match, isn't it? But yeah, that was it for this week's SmackDown. What did you guys think of the show? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, I've been Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.